All right. Hey, everybody. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about the EOS RPG game that I am seriously considering ramping up on sometime mid this month, and I'm going to go in a little bit more detail and kind of do a follow up on some of the stuff that I uploaded. Some of the pointers that I uploaded a couple days ago. If you're listening to this video now, uh, I think I uploaded it 2 days ago. Okay, so the I'm definitely thinking about going in on it, and I'm probably going to start with a fresh project because I have my general ideas here, even though I kind of have, stuff, laid out. Most of it's really just there for, for show, and a lot of it is pretty easy to replicate. I can do it again. Now, as for my questions were answered by multiple people actually. So the ideas where you'd be able to do like calculations for like line of sight and things of that nature, I might not be able to really do that. I can have like a combination of where the characters can stand, off the grid. They can, they're not necessarily confined to a grid, but the grid spacing is going to be what is used for all calculations. So it's a 100% static world on a graph that will be actually baked onto the blockchain, probably stored in RAM, uh, where which isn't going to be terribly cheap as far as I know. That in and of itself may end up being kind of expensive, but that's not. I'm not really super concerned about that yet. It probably won't be as bad as it sounds, but well, actually, I don't know. But basically, each one of these squares will be a byte, on that is stored on the blockchain, and that is as a graph, and can be looked up. And every time a character, so like if I'm an archer and I'm standing here and I want my healer to cast a healing spell on the archer, there's a wall in the way, right? Because there's some kind of a calculation that would need to happen here. Um, what I might end up having to do to save on resources is if you're standing on this block, all I'm going to do is just utilize the graph, a simple graph check to determine if um, if this block can see this block. If that's the case, then it would the spell will be able to go through. I don't know. I'll have to see a little bit, but apparently everything that I asked about is totally possible. The only thing that I need to be concerned about, however, is the cost of storing everything and everything like that. So I'm probably gonna have to go with big chunky blocks for the world size like this. I can do visibility calculations on the graph and stuff like that. Um, it is possible to actually store the graph with basic information as bytes and bits on the blockchain so that it can be referenced by the smart contract to determine whether or not, the player is trying to, hack the client and wants to run through a wall or something like that, right? It'll make it so that that isn't possible. So it prevents cheating. I think everything's pretty much possible. All of the things that I discussed are, yep, it's totally doable. So the timer has to go. I know this is confusing a lot of people who watched the previous video, or like they think that I'm going to be doing this like constant updating. That's not how this game's going to work. There's this game's going to be you tell your characters what to do, and you have all the time you want. So you can take 30 minutes if you feel like it. You can go make a sandwich and like come back and your characters are all going to be standing, and then you can choose like, okay, I want him to go here, and I want him to do action number 5, and then all the client will do is just highlight like, okay, so here's the dude here, he's standing there getting ready to do the his poison bow attack or whatever, and you know what I mean, but you'll see the actual character still standing where he's supposed to be, right? And then there'll be an end turn button. So you'll see like a preview, like a shadow, like a highlighted preview of where all the characters will run next, and on their next turn, and then you just click the button and then they go, right? Now, in the case of being able to play with friends, uh, that can be done. Well, actually, that can be very easy to do, because all you would do then is you would connect to somebody's, somebody would act as a server, and they would connect to you, and there would just be like an extra check to make sure that you both have to end your turns at the same time in order to make things happen, and then maybe you can do a thing where it's like, you know, the other person can just choose, like the other guy is making a sandwich, but you want to go in, you want to cut down a tree or something, or you want to mine some iron ore, and there's no real combat going on. So, you can just end the turn for your friend if you feel like it. You know what I mean, or something like that, and like, just don't be a dick to your friends, and I mean that's pretty straightforward, right? And then you can group up with other players, and you would all just basically be doing what you would normally be doing in single player, but you'd be doing it all at the same time together, and you'd be able to see, oh, he's moving his archer over here and using the poison sting, and he's moving his healer and he's dropping an AoE right here, so maybe I should move my dude over here into his AoE. Like, maybe you could probably have like 3 or 4 friends playing. I don't know, maybe like 4 friends playing together at the same time. The only thing is that every time you want things to actually start happening again, everybody would have to click the begin end turn button, and then you would see like a list like, okay, he clicked and he's ready to go, he's ready to go, he's ready to go. Okay, I'm ready to go, and then you do your shit, and then you know what I mean. So that does actually allow you to play together, which is interesting. So that would be co-op, and all it would be doing is the exact same things you normally do anyway, right? It's really all the same shit. It's just in this case you can see what the other people are doing at the same time, and and that's it really. So this could actually be really some. I feel like this is worthwhile to pursue, and I'm definitely interested in actually doing it. I know I talked about doing it in the past, and then I ended up getting distracted because I ended up having pretty decent pay coming in to work on a different blockchain game that I'm not really allowed to talk about right now. And in this particular case, I don't know if that's going to happen again anytime really soon, but I want to get at least a prototype in place, even if it's not on chain. I want to get a prototype in place that shows what it is that I want to do, and just have it work, right? Where you can connect with a friend, and the general infrastructure is in place for you to be able to actually um, end your turn and update the blockchain, and and actually see some numbers and health bars on enemies, and maybe even some basic logic for bad guys. Like, the enemies would have to have very, very simple logic, because I don't know what the cost is going to be for storing this stuff on the blockchain. The smart contract logic can do anything I want it to do, though. Apparently, it's not bad. So with that said, this game, I have this is a super high risk game, and here's why. There's a lot of things that I want to do that are completely new concepts. One, in order to play the game, you have to have a token on your wallet. All right, and I'm only going to sell so many of those tokens. I'm probably going to sell them for a certain amount. I don't know what the pricing will be, right? But I'm literally just going to put these tokens on a DEX. maybe spread it out between 2 or 3 major dexes. Okay, that's the first time anybody's ever done anything like that, and I'm only going to sell so many of them. Well, and you might be wondering, like, well, what if, some whale comes in and buys, like, more than half of those tokens so that he could sell them at a slight profit? Well, that's free market. I don't know. I don't know. Like, at that point in time, uh, you know, that for me means that a lot of people already have the tokens. The tokens actually have value, right? Like, in order to be able to actually play the game, you have to have that token. Does that mean I won't make more tokens in the future? Well, I won't do it directly. I won't simply print new tokens. What I'll do is I'll make tokens for expansion content or add-ons and stuff like that. And if you own one of those one of the expansion content thingies, maybe you can access most of the rest of the game, but it's more centered around whatever the expansion is, right? So the old token still holds some value. It's better to have both of them, right? And then it would just keep going on and on like that, right? So that would be that. Also, like, you know, since it's all just sold directly on a DEX, like it's completely decentralized thing. Like, I don't really have control over what happens. Maybe nobody buys any of them at all, or whatever. So there's that. I'm also thinking about the game having finite resources. So like, let's take for example, um, there's only so much iron ore in the entire world, right? And anytime the iron ore is destroyed, it goes back into the mountain. But let's say this is a cave that you can visit, and you have your mining equipment and stuff like that. You know you have your copper axe, and you want to mine iron, right? So, or not axe, pickaxe, and you mine those. Like there's only so many bits of iron, right? So you have bits of iron, and then you can melt that into like an ingot of iron, right? Using the crafting system. But at any given time, there's only so much iron ore in the entire planet, right? Or in the game's actual world. So somebody can actually monopolize that, but at the same time, it would be very hard to actually do because it would require so many resources to actually do that. But items also have durability. Like items would be getting destroyed. Items would, you know what I mean? So like, if you have an iron sword and you want to melt the iron sword back down into an ingot, well, you lose a little bit of iron every time you do that. Or if the sword breaks, then you lose a little bit of iron as well. So there's that kind of idea as well. Like so, there's actually like um, limited resources in the world. That's just something I want to mess with. I don't know how hard this is going to be to get in place, but graphically, and I'm going to try and keep things as simple as possible for the first few iterations in terms of graphics and focus purely on gameplay to be able to actually uh, really genuinely have like something where the game itself requires a token, which is a limited resource. A lot of the items in the game, most of them, will be based on limited resources. And there will be very few actual like unlimited resources in some respects. So if you go and you mine iron ore, if you find gold ore or something like that, there's only so much of that in the entire game world. But it will always, but since regular gameplay always involves destroying those items, there will always be another node to mine because nobody can really like those unless they just take all those iron swords and just put them in a bank somewhere. Even then, like over time, the iron swords, they're not as sharp and they need to be repaired. It's like they can't be used. So there's sort of like every item in the world is constantly being destroyed just over time, and or through every single use through durability, that you can only get so much of those things, and whenever they're destroyed, it goes back into the mountain where they came from, right? And then the player can then go back out there and do it again, right? And it would be enough where, well, I'd have to be really careful about how I implement this because of, a miscalculation. People, I don't really want people throwing like unusually high amounts of money at these concepts. But what I'm trying to do is I'm trying something that involves like, well, I don't know, finite resources in a game like this. Think about that. Like, so it's just never been done before. So it's a really interesting concept. All right. So with that said, I'm gonna go ahead. I think I've talked about everything. Everything that I wanted that I talked about in the previous video. I got the gist of it. Everything seems like it's gonna be workable. Um, it seems like the enemy AI, everything co-op with friends, PvP even is entirely motherfucking possible. I don't know. I guess in PvP though, you wouldn't want to see what they're gonna do next. But there would have to be some kind of things like that too. That to me would be really crazy. But for the most part, the game would follow kind of a uh, you know, you have your own little town or your own little place, and then you make crafting stations. It has to have crafting. It has to have really robust crafting systems, and it has to have really robust like gathering of resources and stuff like that in order for the game to really make sense. And then there would have to be like the turn-based combat and stuff. The better the economy is, the more players are buying and selling things, the more incentive. I have more incentive for those things to happen, right? I am incentivized to make it the most robust economy humanly possible, right? Because that's how the game actually profits outside of the buying and selling of the actual token. Once I sell my tokens, those tokens are out there. Anybody can buy and sell them just like any other cryptocurrency. So if somebody wants to sell 100 game tokens, for more than they bought them for, then that's like, if that's fair market value and people agree to actually pay that much, then that's what's probably going to happen is the tokens will go down in value. And a lot of people will be like, well, what about free to play? Well, I don't think free to play really works. So this is the final thing. I keep saying I'm going to wrap this up. The final thing about this game is going to be very niche. I guarantee you I don't know if it's going to catch on or the concept. It is really different, in my opinion. And it's going to be very expensive. This is not a cheap game to play. Okay? Not because the money is going to me, but because it's going to be going to other players. Alright? On an individual basis, the profit model that I'm trying to follow on an individual basis, the player is actually going to earn more than I do. The player has more potential to earn more than me. The only difference is that I'm at the center of it, sorta. I guess it is centralized in that respect, where the game, where every transaction I get a 5% cut, and that's how I make money, right? So I don't know. I mean, but a player sells. That means if a player sells, a gold ingot for $100, I get $5, right? But the player just made 95 fucking dollars off of a gold ingot. You know what I mean? Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna actually wrap this up. I want to hear thoughts on this. I want to hear. I don't know. I can't hype this. I got to be careful not to hype this up too much because it's a niche, super expensive game. I'm not going to blow any smoke up anybody's asses. This is going to be very resource intensive. I imagine that you're probably going to have a lot of CPU staked. The game's going to be designed in such a way where if you run out of resources, you can just put it down for a little while and then come back to it later. But if EOS Nice requires $500 of staked resources in order to actually play the game, then this game will probably take 1,000. I don't know. Okay, it's not a regular. This is very different. This is a very different experience. Uh, yeah. Okay, so with that said, I want to see it, but I'm gonna go ahead. All right, now I have to end this video because I've said I'm gonna end the video like 5 times. Okay, hope you enjoyed. Stay tuned for more.